The progress on our veg patch has been slightly thwarted by the whole coronavirus, in that we're really struggling to get deliveries and materials of certain things. So even though we've managed to secure the compost for the raised beds, we don't have any topsoil, just so that we can get the seeds going for the time being. We've managed to get some bags of John Innes number 2 from our local garden centre, so at least that can go in with 2 of our first raised beds. So at least we can get the seeds to start coming up. The other slowdown is that we put in quite a large order 3 weeks ago with Marshalls online for vegetable plugs. We've been following up with them on a weekly basis. They've been very, very courteous and very professional. They notified us this week that according to their system, it's now under process. They are going into the warehouse, but we have no idea what's going to arrive, purely because they said that they in turn are having problems with their suppliers. So they will mix and match certain things, substitute certain products. So if we selected one specific type of tomato, we might get another. At the end of the day, this is the situation that we're dealing with. So we'll basically be very appreciative of what we can get, so that at least we can start to put our veg patch together. So this is the progress that we've made. As we can see, the paling fencing is around almost everywhere now. We've only got the last 2 bits on the gate to go. That'll probably get done over the next couple of days. What I'm going to do today is the first 2 raised beds. These will now get filled with a mixture of John Innes number 2 and the compost that we have. We'll get it nice and moist and nice and wet the whole way through, so that it's good to go. Then maybe this afternoon or tomorrow morning, I will start placing the first of our seeds. We were quite lucky in that last year we bought too many seeds for the trugs that we have up at the top of the house. That turned out to be quite a fortuitous mistake on our part, because we have got quite a huge assortment of vegetables that we can grow. There's lettuce, there's rocket, kale, bok choy, just a ton of things that we can grow, that we grew last year in the trugs, that were very, very successful. So we know that they're going to work very, very well here. And the other notable completion on our veg patch has been the compost container on the reverse side here. We've done a separate video of this one. So this is good to go. We've already started working on it. As we can see, it's looking quite good. Already we're beginning to see an influx of insects. It's only been operational now for maybe 3 or 4 days. So we will continue to add some matter to this. We're probably lacking a little bit of the green stuff, which is the nitrogen rich matter that will be added, so that we can start getting the temperature of this heap up a little bit, so that we can start breaking down the materials. By all accounts, we're hoping to turn this compost heap around probably in the next 6 to 8 months, so that we can basically introduce all of this lovely compost to our veg patch towards the end of the year. And then by that stage we'll have definitely hit autumn and winter, so we're going to start getting a lot more brown matter, the carbon rich stuff, which we'll start to layer in there, which we will then work quite hard at to try and get ready for March or April of next year. So when the next planting season is good to go, we're good to go. So today is a day of heavy lifting and a lot of wheelbarrowing. Like I said, compost in there with the John Innes, watering that's getting the soil nice and rich and nice and conducive towards planting our seeds. So I turned the turf and the soil that we can see in the raised beds about 10 days to 2 weeks ago. So as a result, it's been a very, very dry spell. We've had no rain in 2 weeks. So as a result, the top layer has gone really, really dry. So what I'm doing is I'm just giving it a little bit of water just to liven it up a little bit. Then I'm going to put a layer of compost on top of that, which is obviously quite moist. So we don't want the compost to be affected. So we just want it just to keep everything moist and damp, and creating a conducive environment for our seeds to go in. The only drawback is that I'm having to do this manually with a watering can and going halfway up the hill. Our 100-meter long hose pipe is on order with Amazon. I think it's going to arrive in about 10 days time with all the delays with COVID. Here's, I've got my John Innes. We've got a good layer of compost in there now. It's been quite, it's nice and damp. The issue with buying commercial compost though is that just the amount of rubbish that's in there, and I literally mean rubbish. I've pulled out tons of microplastics, harder plastics, bin liners, agricultural plastic. It's really, really horrible. So it's just, again, just a reaffirmation that we should be going ahead with our own compost heap, because at least we know exactly what's going in there. And it will be 100% organic with no plastics and other stuff that we don't really want in our compost heap. So the John Innes stuff should be a lot cleaner. But yeah, so there we go. That's the compost. Now we're going to lay some of the John Innes, number 2, into the bed, creating another layer. Then we'll put another layer of compost, another layer of John Innes, and then just mix it through with a pitchfork, just so that everything integrates and mixes together. And that should be the first of the raised beds completed. Nice day today, at least. Not too hot, nice breeze. Beautiful day, in fact. While in isolation during the coronavirus, I'd rather be doing this than sitting in front of the TV. So here we go. I guess I haven't explained this, so in case you're wondering why I'm using John Innes and I'm not just going with a compost, from what I read is that you do want to mix your compost and topsoil together to just create a soil that's a little bit more compact and easier for the plants to get established in. If you were to go straight into compost, A, it's quite rich, and B, it doesn't have as much weight to it. So the John Innes number 2 is a mixture of things that basically has got some sort of grit in it. I think it's lime-free grit, if I'm not mistaken. That will now mix through with the actual soil. You can see it's a lot denser than the actual compost itself. So this will just give the soil some weight, and it will allow the plants, whether it's seeds or whether it's the plugs, just to get a better foothold while they start to grow. So there are 3 variations of John Innes, 1, 2, and 3. Number 2's, as you would imply, is the middle kind of ground. As it says here, it's got the ideal nutritional value for houseplants and vegetables. And that, working in conjunction with our compost, should give us the best combination to work from. So I'm going to continue going with that, and we'll keep you updated. That's the John Innes number 2 layer in. It's looking pretty good. In case you're wondering, I've taken a lot of the guesswork out of the equation by knowing exactly how much volumetric space I need for each of my raised beds. So all the raised beds are 3 by 1 meter, and they're 30 centimeters high, more or less, to the height of the plastic that we can see, the liner. So what that means is that each of our raised beds is about 900 liters of volumetric space, which basically equates to half a dumpy or bulky bag of compost, and about 17 bags of John Innes, which is 25 liters a bag. Obviously, it's far more cost efficient to just buy a large bulky or dumpy bag of topsoil. But during the current situation, we just have to make do with what is available in the market and what we can actually get deliveries. As I said, we are quite rural. We don't have big cities or towns in close proximity to us, and what stores there are around us are all presently closed, or they can't make the kind of deliveries that we need using cranes. So, you know, if we want to have a harvest this summer, we've just got to suck it up and, you know, keep utilizing what we can get our hands on. And this is currently the exercise that we're having to go through. Anyway, that's my break. Time to head back up and bring down some more compost. So that's the first bed finished. Really pleased with that. When you run your fingers through the soil, it feels really luscious, and there's a good amount of body to it. It's not flaky, it's not thin, it's just nice and firm, very, very rich, as we can see in terms of the color. So this is bed one done. It's very exciting what I'm going to do today. It is the middle of April, so this bed here I'm going to just dedicate to seeds, because I don't know what's going to be happening to our veg plugs. So this is where things should start to get more exciting. I've basically halved our bed. Our beds are 1 meter wide, so I've run that piece of wood down the middle to show me the 50 centimeter mark, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of breathing space there, purely because I have got cloches that I want to use. They're about 45 centimeters wide, so I want to just keep a small channel just through the middle, so that space there is around just under 50 centimeters on either side of that particular plank that's lying through the middle of our wood. So that'll give me a good dividing line to work through. I've then subdivided the rest of our bed to give me nice squares to work in. Most of those squares are 50 by 50 centimeters. I've pinched the one at the top and made it slightly wider next to it, because that's where the runner beans are going to go. The runners aren't going to require a full 50 centimeter spot. Now, with regards to the companion gardening, what we're going to be doing now is I'm going to be going through my seeds, and I'm going to be putting complementary things next to each other. So what a lot of people tend to do is they will, for example, just take an entire row and just run carrots from start to finish. You can obviously do that, but you are inviting certain pests and diseases over time, which may affect your crop. By actually doing it in smaller squares like we are here, it'll be easier for us to rotate vegetables going forward, and it's also less likely to invite any unwanted pests to that particular area, purely because it's a far smaller area. And especially if we're clever in our approach and plant things that detract certain pests. This is something I've read extensively about. It's a practice that has gone on for decades. Ideally, if you do get it right, there's going to be no need for pesticides and for anything like that, because it does become a far more organic way of gardening. And that's not to say that we'll only have one square of carrots. We'll have a square of carrots here, a square of carrots elsewhere. So we are still going to be able to get the full quota of vegetables that we want to. They are just going to be spread out and around the various raised beds. The obvious exception to those are going to be things like potatoes and pumpkins and squashes, purely because they do require more space to grow. It's all about experimentation for us. We have never ever grown a veg patch this large before. We've had 3 trugs last year, which were a big success. So this is going to be experimentation. We are by no means experts. This is just us sharing what we're doing, and also the outcomes and things that we learn. There's obviously a lot of experienced gardeners out there that may be looking at this saying, oh, you've done this incorrectly or that incorrectly. That is part of the learning lesson. We've read a lot of books. People do approach things very, very differently, and until you actually roll up your own sleeves and get stuck in, you're never actually going to learn and understand what happens in your particular area. This is obviously a different climate to certain other areas that people may be in, so this is just part of us learning. And yeah, that's that. So next up, we're going to take out our seeds. So I've laid out my plan for this particular bed. I have followed several books with regards to which vegetables would like to coexist with other vegetables and what will be beneficial to them. So I'm going to be following those. I'll share that with you in a second once I've planted everything. This direction up here is west, and obviously east the other way. So south is behind me, so these beds are all kind of south facing. So at the same time, I don't want to be casting too much shade on certain things. So on the east side of the bed is where I'm going to be placing some of the taller things. So I have got leeks, for example, and the kale, which grow up to maybe 50 centimeters in height. So those will basically be running on the right hand portion of this raised bed. because so as not to cast shade onto others. Most of the vegetables that we're planting do require full sunshine, so we're going to be respecting that. Obviously, if there was a vegetable that didn't, we might have considered placing it behind something, but for this particular bed, we're going to be growing all the taller goods on the right hand side and the shorter guys on the left. So I'm going to get planting now, and then I'll let you know what's gone where, and we'll monitor this bed over the course of the next couple of days while we work on others. And so the process will go throughout the summer. So I've laid my seed bags as to where the seeds are all going to get planted. What I wanted to add was that these bags are all open. I utilized these last year for our trugs up at the top of the house. Every single one of these was planted straight into the ground. There was no need to nurture them in a greenhouse. They were all very hardy, all very resistant, and everything but the carrots actually did take last year. So we'll be seeing what happens this year, but I'm optimistic that everything that we have here will actually grow in situation. Like I said, we'll just have to protect them from frost, but generally speaking, these are the right times to be planting these. They're all supposed to be planted in March or April. It is mid-April now, so we're very much well on track to get these planted. The lettuce in particular last year sprouted very, very quickly, as did the rocket, so I'm looking forward to that. The spinach was another one that grew very, very quickly, very, very tasty. I wasn't going to bore you with me seeding everything, so we are now finished. This is the last of the seeding stuff. You can probably see, if you look very carefully, the tiny little seeds. These are the bok choy seeds. Predominantly, or each and every single one of these gets planted at a depth of 1.5 centimeters. The only thing that really varies is the distance between the rows. So they're all done. Now what I'm going to do is, we've got some netting. I'm going to put it over this for two reasons. Number one, our cat Leopold always is looking for exotic places as a toilet, so we're constantly having to block up places where we're planting new plants and where the soil is soft. This is just beautifully prepared, and it will be really, really annoying if he did get in here. Once we do put any coverings over it, obviously deters him from doing that, so that'll be that. And number two, we have got a lot of pheasants and other wildlife around, so we're going to be just putting in a level of prevention to keep them out, and having a little afternoon feast at our expense, and us not having any vegetables going forward. So I will now remove all of the stakes, and the netting is going to go in. So that's a wrap for part 2 of this video. Tune in for part 3, when we continue to fill the raised beds with soil and we start to rabbit proof our vegetable patch. See you then. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. You can also follow us on Twitter or check out our website at myhomefarm.co.uk. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button below, and if you have any suggestions for any other videos you would like to see, please leave a comment. We hope to see you on our next video.